Welcome to Futures with an S, a podcast that investigates the diverse array of futures waiting to unfold. I'm Richard Bukowski, strategic forecaster, futurist, and your guide through the fascinating world of future thinking. You might be wondering about the S in the title. It's there to remind us that the future isn't a fixed destination, but a landscape of potential realities. As a futurist, I help people and organizations imagine different futures, yes, plural, and use those visions to be better prepared today. In each episode, we'll dive into conversations with industry leaders, explore cutting edge topics, and future thinking methodologies. We'll unpack complex ideas like quantum computing and Industry 4.0, the ethics of emerging technologies, and how cities might adapt to climate changes. But this isn't just about predictions, it's about preparation and possibilities. Whether you're a CEO looking to future proof your business, an activist fighting for change, or simply curious about what tomorrow might bring, this podcast offers practical tools and imaginative scenarios to help you navigate these uncertainties ahead. So, if you're ready to expand your mind, challenge your assumptions, and play an active role in shaping the future, you're in the right place. Remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create. Let's create it together. Welcome to Futures with an S, because one future is not enough. Especially with my new guest, or my future guest, or my super guest, who I'll introduce shortly. So let's dive in. So, a quick recap of the future of linear television. Part one goes into, again, the methodology of futurism about looking back to look forward. And we're going to cover the birth of television, the growth of some drivers, some nostalgic videos that drove the drivers, adaptations to TV from VCRs to cable and satellite, and then the transition to digital, which kind of leads us here. And perfectly, for it to work, we have my special guest, Mr. Julian Zilderbrand.
That's quite a welcome and quite an introduction. Thanks a lot for having me.
You made it because I was pretty sure there were people here. We had bets that there was no way a man of quality like Julian Zilderbrand, who has such information, is just going to come on my regular TV, TV show. Holy shit, my podcast. So thank you very much for coming.
It's my pleasure. You're obviously a good friend, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. So this is Julian Zilderbrand from the cult neck Zilderbrands, kind of running all of New Jersey on that part. A quick background on you. Product innovator, business development leader, digital and advanced television authority, head of data, head of analytics, head of operations. How you can't be here? I may have to hang up on you. I don't know. Look at it, and the places that you work: advanced media at Paramount, audience, sciences at Viacom. And again, I think what brings again the other layer and value of what you are is that you come from the other side, the agency side. So VP of activation, insight and technologies at Zenith, global tech and activation at Starcom. Is there no stopping you, sir? Is there no stopping you?
I've had the luxury of working with an incredibly talented group of people that have helped me become a better individual, a better person, and a better business person. And I'm really lucky to have had the experiences that I've had, worked with the people that I've had a chance to work with, grow, and I give all the credit to anything I've ever achieved to my wife.
That was my clap. Where are my claps? Now, how did you capture her? I don't even know that. You're right. She is an amazing woman, beautiful. I don't know what magic you used, sir, but again, well played. Well played.
I don't try not to give away my secrets, but there was a roofie and probably ropes involved. So.
Hey, what are you working my side of the table for, please? So, all right. Again, an excellent transition from roofie to digital television. So that's kind of where we'll go. And again, the next about 10, 15 minutes is going to be about the DTV, as and how kind of where we went with in the the addition of all the digital aspects of what happened to television, and then obviously kind of using that for kind of the future. So transitioning from analog to digital, and like I'm going to take it over from like the digital switch over. Kind of it happened differently, across different countries, different part of the world, and kind of a quick reason why or at least where we went into that DTV word. So in '96, Congress kind of passed a law saying that we're going to be kind of moving from analog to full digital everywhere. Everyone got their correct license. In 2029, I'm sorry, 2009, the official switch happens. And it took a couple of months for the end user, a very fickle group that you and I both know, kind of to adapt and to buy another something to kind of make things go or access it in other places. But it all opened up. Now you can do it at on your boat, in your basement. You can have it, kind of like there was just started to hear like all the kind of interesting things that you are now able to do with DTV that you weren't able to do before. And then it kind of puts us basically into 2010, in the present when it comes to the streaming world, if that's where you want, kind of where you want to take television now. Um, I'm really going to keep kind of technical when it comes to like what high-speed internet has done for current television consumption. The kind of rise of all the different streaming platforms, opening up worlds like original content kind of out of the linear TV world, the change of viewer habits in that around that same time when you have your cord cutters for the first time, kind of shocks down to multiple sectors. So I'd kind of love to get your kind of insight again based on your past performances and then kind of your future views on how those force multipliers kind of has affected the industry.
Well, I think, look, I think if you just look at the way that technology has evolved from the beginnings of the internet, right? And we're both old enough to remember a time before the internet. This was probably always going to go in this direction. There are obviously realities around world events and pandemics and etc. that kind of speed up the inevitable. So, if you look at, let's just use streaming as an example, it was all going in that direction anyway. Everybody was moving in that direction. The behavior was not necessarily fully there yet because the realities around what people are used to and what's available to them, dictated that was going to take a period of time. You have a pandemic. The pandemic forces everybody to be at home. And the proxy of that is the resulting factor of people spending more time at home, spending more time in streaming, and the switch from, linear experiences to streaming experiences, were sped up, right? And what would have been inevitable, probably starting to happen a couple of years from now, started to happen a couple of years earlier. That and the reality around, the evolution of the consumer, right? And the generational changes and the approximation, right? When my kid was, I think it was like 2 or 3 years old, he walked up to the TV and tried to swipe it. And what does that mean? It means obviously he was probably playing with an iPad too early, but that's a different story.
No concept.
But what it fundamentally means is that the behavior that he was used to in terms of the consumption of whatever entertainment you want, we'll call TV the entertainment, that consumption and that behavior dictated him to see a screen and assume that that's the behavior that he has to have with it. That it didn't work was like, why does that not work? And so now you have a whole generation of people growing up with a different behavior pattern.
Yeah.
And so my kid, when he had a cable box in his house, in his room, I should say, he unplugged it. Like on his own, it was just like, I don't need this. I don't want this. This is a waste of my time. which hurt me deeply as somebody who was working for a company that delivered content and, was a, I don't call them a cable
Yeah.
company, but, was a company that had tons of cable channels. And that was super, super, disturbing to me, but completely understandable, right? Like that's not his behavior. He was an on-demand behavior. So because he's an on-demand behavior, then he had no need for the experience that cable
Yeah.
provided because the on-demand scenario wasn't as intuitive as it is in streaming. So a lot of this is behavior and generated behavior, and a lot of the future things that we're going to talk about here are about creating new behavior patterns and about allowing the consumer to help drive the experience and for the the people who provide
System.
the experience to force behavioral change in order to benefit their
Yeah.
ability to drive profit and money out of television.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know if, again, how much of this you can share and stuff. And again, the value of having, working both sides of the table. Like, do you remember like the early days of when like cord cutting numbers started to, show up a lot higher? And you kind of really had the content providers and the advertisers kind of like initially scratching their heads about where this might go. What does this kind of all mean? And having like kind of your background, was there any kind of early guesstimates or something that everyone was kind of talking about, or were they ready to just let it all flow and kind of go from there?
I think that when the cord cutting started to happen, I think everybody saw what the future was, so to speak. I don't think they saw the speed properly, right? The speed of future, if you will, right? Like, I think as it started to happen, it was taken seriously, but everybody assumed they had more time than they did. And I think that's the best way to put it. Like, you didn't see those numbers and not recognize that a new generation of people that were going to come up weren't able to afford, the same experiences, if you will, than we did. So I think that everybody assumed that that would be the evolution of television. I think obviously the global pandemic and
Mm-hmm.
just the speed of I know you mentioned it a little bit, the speed of your available internet, the volume of potential opportunities that existed, in terms of streaming opportunities and so on, kind of forced that to happen faster than anticipated. And I think a lot of companies were slow to react because of that. So as an
Yeah.
example, the company that
And
I was
yes, please.
working at the time, released their streaming service later than most, which I think obviously was not necessarily ideal for that. But again, I think it was like nobody was naive to what was happening. I don't think that anybody recognized or could have predicted what the facilitating factors were to speed that up, right? And then that speed then caused probably some of the
Yeah.
challenges that we're now seeing.
This kind of leads me to the again when you added the D to TV, that there are all these inherent parts that came to television that most people didn't realize. Or at least again, if you're not either a student of media or a geek or kind of something like that, but the change opened up so many great opportunities. I'm just wondering if like I know you're kind of losing on one side, but like here's the other side, right? And I was going to run through a kind of a quick kind of what as I mentioned before, the transition to digital, right? So one, it opened up a whole bunch of more signals, right? Because analog was kind of kept in like it had a frame. They couldn't do any more, right? So it just opened up like a tons of bandwidth and tons of like ways that signaling could even get into your house, but it went from
Yeah, but
also.
the consumer doesn't know signals,
No, I know,
right?
but like right. But the reason that your son did what he did was because he was expecting something like a fast response or kind of something like, and that's
Well,
kind of like
he was a trained behavior, right? He had a
right.
trained behavior, and I think I'll come back to this a lot because I really fundamentally believe in that philosophy that you know we are all fundamentally socially trained, right? and
Hmm.
behaviorally train through social
Yeah,
realities,
I speak to
technology
those.
realities. And I think that, when you look at the change and what potential opportunities it opens up, and again, we'll talk about the depth of some of those
Yeah.
or give examples, I'm sure you will. I think it still ties back to, I could release this today that the technology exists, but the behavior doesn't. And so it's too soon to release the technology. So we'll use the example of, Snap releasing their glasses,
Woohoo!
right? And I don't know if you saw what they
Oh, I know
what they
exactly what
released.
happened there. Yeah.
Yeah, they released that recently. Looks cool,
Yeah,
but they released those glasses 3 or 4 years before,
they did.
right? And two things were there. One, the behavior wasn't there. Two, obviously the look and feel and so on and so forth. But now all of a sudden you got spatial computing from Apple, even though it's not necessarily at scale or in use, but people are aware of it. And you have
They have their own
movies
channel.
right? Like popular movies, Iron Man, The Avengers,
Yeah.
where you're seeing visually, you're seeing a behavior of Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., manipulating virtual reality through gestures and all this other stuff. And that's like, all of a sudden, that's the behavior training. Like, I saw that, I know it
Hmm.
exists. So now when it's available to me in real life, it's not the first time I'm seeing it. I
Yeah.
might know how to interact with it. Now, obviously, at scale, you'll still need to train those behaviors. But what I'm saying is like ultimately, as much as opportunities present themselves and capabilities present themselves with new technologies and with the move to digital, you still need to train your customer base to a behavior that would allow you to monetize that
Yeah.
more effectively.
100%. Yeah. Training about certain, again, kind of expectations, both to the end user, but I also think the Congress is like again a worthy cause for people who are looking to
Totally.
make a difference.
Totally.
So again, flipping back to the the advantage of digital, digital allowed for high def, right? Like so, the quality of video and the quality of sound increased so much when it went to to digital. So like again, people don't even again they're not supposed to realize or didn't realize, or there's a whole generation that's just used to it, but it allowed for a whole bunch of other features, and then you can produce and transmit multiple programs on a single channel that allows for other things to happen in the in the environment. The reception gets better for mobile people. Mobile is designed for digital. Give
Right.
digital TV to mobile. Now your phone is a digital television. Like
Yeah.
and again, again, opening up or expectations for where you are now, right? So all the new businesses and all new opportunities they're kind of allowing there. Another part that
And if you
digital,
tie that back to what we're talking about, like that change fundamentally allowed for a better home experience,
yeah,
right? So now, by proxy of creating the home experience, I started to facilitate a behavior change where now instead of having to go to a movie theater, as an example, I could have a similar experience in my
bring,
basement.
yeah, and wait till you and again wait till you see what's coming, or like,
Right.
or wait till everybody else sees what's coming right around the corner. Like a good futurist and future, strategic foresight, person, I keep the government and the military and in my eyes, as in like looking for
Sure.
for signals and things like that.
10 years ahead, baby. They're always 10 years ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so they worked themselves into digital television in a positive manner that allowed for specific emergency alert systems to happen, and that they were able to dissect exactly where and when instead of like large program or blasts or something like that. So that kind of hyper targeting, if you want to leave it, and we'll go there.
We'll call it addressable.
Yeah, but and again, good use. It aligned the digital TV aligned it with the other digital technologies like your computer and again and the internet. Everyone started talking the same language, the language of digital. Hee.
Yeah.
And then
Well, that's super complex in the TV space, right? Because the measurement didn't catch up with the speed of change in
well,
consumption. So
you
that
know,
becomes problematic.
okay, except for the companies that own their their data and stuff like that, and they still wouldn't share it, but But again, the transition to digital signals allowed for advanced, opportunities that we have today, and there's a technology that TV people are using, and again, there's no test, but it's called ATSC. If you ever see it across, 3.0, by the way, which is now the new standard that's allowing the shift between broadcasters and receivers and kind of paving way for a much more interactive and kind of future world, right?
Yeah.
So now like now you have your hardware, right? You have TVs like doing amazing amounts of digital signal processing that they didn't have to kind of do before, right? And then it's kind of like the heart, basically like the modem of what your kind of TV is or what your viewing system is, right?
Yep.
The other kind of other smart things that AI are kind of playing in now when it comes to like advanced ways to manipulate the signal for for bit levels, right? So how it should deliver bits, using the systems that are around. It'll know give better quality or at these times this that or whatever. And who's kind of being able to upscale kind of up and down the also the kind of the ranges that makes certain things like lifelike. Like again, the motion, the sound, the smoothness of what additional processing has allowed us to do, right? You're not it's not choppy, it's not this, it's not that, right? So high quality, smooth, amazing sound, kind of independent thinking when it comes to like entertainment and stuff, right? The chips that are on the TV now, right? They're basically graphic processors. That's kind of like also the same thing that's helping AI become what it is because these are chips that were originally designed to process amazing amounts of graphics. Like
Absolutely.
kind of
Absolutely.
are all there. And I'm not going to get into chip where they're being made and why we should be paying attention to certain countries, but we'll leave that.
Sure.
It allowed for color variations, reproductions. The LED, LED screens and micro LED screens with even deeper, processing. Now we're at 8K, high resolution, super power. What are we supposed to do with this?
I don't think much yet, right? But again, as we talk about what consumption is going to look like in the future and the way that people are going to consume, the quality dictates what the experience might be able to evolve into, right? So when we talk about, for example, live sports, for you to feel like you're at the stadium, right? Like with a virtual experience or an AR experience, using glasses or whatever that's going to look like in the future, chip in your head, whatever. That will allow for all these different kind of consumer experiences, which will improve, the consumer experience, but will allow for more innovation in broadcasting and allow for more innovation in advertising and create new opportunities for consumers to have fantastic experiences and for companies to monetize those experiences. So, all of this fundamentally, all this move to a better kind of visual experience is kind of I don't want to call it a red herring, but it's for all intent and purposes a red herring to monetize more effectively. So and for other companies to monetize, and I think it's great because ultimately the consumer benefits from that level of innovation, and the consumer benefits from a better experience in their entertainment and so on. So all of this has positive connotations. Obviously, we could turn into negative as well, but let's focus on the positive.
Yeah,
Well, this is
there'll
all
be time for
positive
negative at the
development.
end. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all positive developments, and we're at 8K. Like 16K is a couple of years away. I mean, it's not like that's going to be impossible.
Right.
And frankly, like if you think about where things are going, are you going to need that screen, or am I just going to be able to have my glasses and have the same experience as having a TV? Right? Like that's what the Snap fundamental, right, that they released, right? They said it's the equivalent of a 100-inch television, right, in your eyes. So what is that going to look like? Is it going to be disorientating? And is the technology where it needs to be? And there's only 45 minutes of power, so you're not going to behaviorally start doing that, right?
Yeah.
But at some stage, what is 45 minutes of power will be 45 days, right? When you talk about the batteries and so on.
Very
So
close. Yeah.
it's going to be a fascinating evolution of television in the future.
All right. Well, I think this might be a great time for us to take a deep breath, take a little kind of quick break. I'm here with Julian Zilderand, and we'll be back shortly. Okay, I just marked it in the video.
Yeah, just mark it and let's keep going.
Yep. Um, Thinking about moving away from like some of the larger. Oh, I can't move away from the LEDs, kind of because that's kind of where it's going. But and the AI is basically that's what we're going to do next, right?
Okay.
So large screens, large visuals, and then I want to go into the 12K movies. I'm going to kind of bring out, share my screen.
Okay.
And I'll go into some of those other kind of perspectives, but I just wanted to make sure that the listener knew that there was a lot of like heavy duty technology kind of behind what's now going to make this kind of standard. Now I had in one of my trying to find that note that I had. It was like there's one of the issues and challenges, has to do with standardization and or lack of, or the immediate need of. And so I may, you know, bring that up too when it comes to the world of kind of digital advertising when it came to that those same things like the delivery, the space, the kind of recognition of what is considered what. And we fumbled. Everyone's fumbling like kind of like forever for years until we got that. And like if we got it done straight now, like like you wanted to, with viewability, you and
Yeah.
Saint Ari,
Yeah.
um, you know, a lesson to be learned from our experiences to get
Yeah.
standardization out. It's not hard, And with digital allowing, the different manipulations, we can kind of get that done.
Yeah.
Wonder why
About
that.
that, I mean,
Where
I
is
have
that?
a super relevant kind of point on that. So yeah.
And then so again, I'm going to show um, like some of the. I think I sent you those creatives. So like the guy taking his father to the ball game, right? And then I'm going to show the 12K movie
Yep.
clips. We'll talk over them, and then
Yep.
I'm going to wind back to this, um, home pod that I think is being developed, you know, with for us, by us, I don't know the need, um, and like again some of the positives and kind of negatives and stuff kind of go with that. There is there's a part of somewhere around here that I wanted to kind of talk about, like, and we, that I think your feedback would be interesting, is the uh, like the ratings. Like I know we kind of touched on it, but the like they're with this technology they're exact, right? Like Nielsen always was, kind of like fuzzy logic statistics kind of thing, and we have some of this.
No, it's not. It's not that simple.
You
It's.
don't
I
think it's
mean,
that
if we talk
simple?
measurement just because I have a paper coming out. It's not as simple as it's digital. So now it's simple. It's not. It's not. It's
Okay.
not any. It's more complex because television is not digital in its natural sense, right? You have, and again, we could talk about it, but there's a big difference between delivering an ad on a website and delivering an ad on television where you have 120 different distributors of that and the different data signals that exist there and so on and so forth. It's not as straightforward.
All right. Because where I'm going with this, and where I think the technology is going, not just me, but just as a forecaster, is that the personalized content delivery, you know, again the targeting, right, could be down to this to the specific person. Not only that, but also like their general viewing habit, right, and in prefixes, like AI is going to be able to kind of do that. So and also making like suggestions or alternative endings.
Yes,
You
I
know,
think. Look, and again, we could talk
and so
about
yeah,
it.
and I think the alternative endings will kind of. I think I will use that to kind of to jump into like the larger screen text and things like that. Okay.
Yeah. Let's do it.
And there was one other thing I wanted to mention with some of the, we can do it with first gen TV. Was that what they're calling it? Next gen TV. But there is which is the ATSC 3.
Uh-huh.
And they're already, kind of talking about, second gen. I don't know if I'm going to bring that up just yet about, what else it's doing. But we're talking about, you know, what it basically does is open up a two-way line of communication, right? Basically an IP protocol,
It allows for dynamic ad insertion in television, which is much harder to
No, no,
do.
right. No, no, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, basically ATSC, if I would say it right, to ATSC, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just basically a like it just turned your TV into a browser, right? It has like a kind of a two-way communication that uses internet protocol, right? And like again, this kind of like so that's kind of like basically where I'm going to say like so with that, and again all the other signals and kind of where we were talking about, it also opens up a lot of other things like real-time polls and quizzes, multiple camera angles, you know, different narratives, again for like so if you're I'm saying if you can get that you get down that part that I want my TV show to end like in a happier way than the other, then you should be able to target me pretty quickly and be able to and count me and like exhaust data as well.
Assuming that there's privacy compliance, I mean, like that's where all this kind of starts to become complex.
Yeah, I don't know if I maybe moving that I moved that some of those kind of things to the end, like the challenges and stuff. I hate staying there. I hate when people kind of talk about it. I think, but it's worthy of bringing it up.
No, I think look, if you're going to bring up the reality that both AI and changes in capabilities will lead to more personalization opportunities, you also have to realize that whether or not you're still delivering on a television, you're still delivering to a household, not a person. So it still layers a little bit of complexity, right? You're not delivering to a person on a television set. You are delivering to a household.
Right, but in the future of linear television, the it's true. Now I'm thinking about it. Like if we're really going to have something close to like a family room experience and a individual TV, individual glasses. I don't like these goggles.
It's so this is where it
Wearable,
starts.
wearable, wearable.
Yeah,
Okay.
it starts getting complicated because you're getting into the measurement realities, right? And so when we probably should do this unrecorded, but
Yeah, yeah.
so
Okay,
let's
so
just have the conversation. Well, it'll evolve the way it
all right.
is.
So cord cut is all right. Here we go. And welcome back. I am here with covering again some amazing technologies, both in the delivery and reception of it, of different signals, and kind of the combination and what the next gen TV is bringing to the table, I guess, right? So, Julian, basically, what this technology allows your TV, if to do is turn into a two-way line of communication, working on where we used to have, and again, all the thoughts and processes behind it were always about one way, right? The viewable, how far are you from the screen? How far all this?
Make sure to drink water.
Sorry, and but
Yeah,
now
make
it's
sure.
basically IP based, like everything else that we have. So we can now kind of communicate like that, the way we've been trained to kind of to use it, to know how to use the two way, opening up that line of communications and interactivity. Um, you know, I want to bring up one of the benefits about some of these two-way communications, and again, get your point of view on it. Are again that we may be used to with a different platform or medium are the the ability to do real-time polls and quizzes, right?
Yeah.
Getting that information in, again, getting that information out, but also kind of using that information to let the TV evolve itself, right? So if it starts to kind of know you're giving information, right? The IP also allows for multiple camera angles and a lot of for your viewing
Sure.
consumption. Most of the time, sports, movies, kind of TV are usually, again, the three camera, one screen, we're kind of all looking that way. But this type of technology allows, and I'm wondering if you can share a little bit on that, on second screen or third screen, how, we were kind of calling it inside. The ability for another screen to interact with the screen that you're kind of watching right now, which is usually your television.
Well, actually, in theory, you can do a lot of this now, right? Like
No,
you
no, yeah, I'm
can
saying it
have.
is, but I'm saying and I know it's been around.
Yeah.
But and so I'm kind of curious, in like with your background, these had to come up. Everybody wants the newest, kind of sexiest things, and again, they had caught on, a little bit caught on, may caught on again. But again, wanted to get your thoughts on that whole
Yeah.
new.
So, I mean, look, ATSC 3.0 is going to be an important evolution of television, right? Like, as you're stating, you are digitizing or able to read a digital signal in a much more functional manner, which allows for, digital capabilities, if you will, to evolve in both in a linear space and to the extent, obviously, you're simulcasting to a streaming environment or whatever it is, right? So, like, those capabilities exist, but it also goes back to the reality of the behavior. TV is a natural lean back environment. So if you're going to run a live poll when I'm watching linear, am I going to engage? I don't know. Obviously, and if I'm going to engage, how are you making it easy for me to engage? And is it real time? So, I work with a company now called Accuratio. They have patents on some technologies. You could fundamentally today press the down button on your remote and have, something on screen end up in a cart or
Right.
something to that effect, right? So, like, these kinds of things exist, but the behavior to have that action doesn't, right? And it's going to take time. The other thing about ATSC 3.0, let me ask you a question. You have a TV in your living room?
I do.
When's the last time you bought a new TV and put it in your living room? Exactly. So,
Right.
without answering that question, that is the one main challenge of this kind of evolution is, hey,
Years,
I
5 years.
have a TV in my living room. I bought it 5 years ago. I'm probably not going to buy another one for another 5 years because it works perfectly fine.
Right.
So I'm not updating my main set with an ATSC 3.0 compliant television, which most people are not going to be doing. So the turnover on that is going to take time. Plus, it might change. There's a difference between I bought a new TV with the ATSC capability for my son in his room who doesn't watch linear TV, right? As opposed to me in my living room where I do watch linear TV. So the turnover of the TV set is going to take some like significant time. It will happen organically, or maybe it'll happen. There are some software updates in certain TVs that will allow it, but this is a hardware change. So at the end of the day, it's going to take time for that to scale out, which is good because I think it's going to take time to get people to behave in the manner that would really speak to what that allows to. And that will start in the streaming world where it's already digitized and you could do some of these things. But even in streaming, in a live feed, so if I'm watching the NFL on Sunday on a streaming network,
Which
that's
Linear still owns, by the way.
a
So
linear
right,
broadcast delivery,
right.
and so you're not doing like addressability at the same level unless you work with some companies that I talk to. You're not able to do that. You're not necessarily you're not necessarily doing a lot of the digitized experiences yet, although you could start to introduce those. The interesting thing will be, the natural organic decline of the linear experience relative to the scale of ATSC 3.0 and whether or not like it will matter, right?
Yeah.
So like it's an interesting shift, but the bottom line is the capabilities that you can now start to potentially deliver in select environments are good testing grounds for new experiences. Even if you do it in a lab or you do it in select environments or you facilitate a change. So if you are Walmart who bought Vizio and now is selling Vizio TVs, in Walmart at potentially a larger scale because it's your product, and you make those all 3.0 compliant, and you are, a distributor of those, kind of tool, that kind of capability in the TV set. Hey, maybe you could speed up that scenario faster if you were so inclined. Trade in your original TV for a new one because in this new experience, I can have data that I'm capturing that's more that you're going to opt into when you first turn on the TV, or you're going to have a testing ground for innovation that you're going to be able to use, and where those are sold, so the areas where there might be high density of those, so you could test things. So I think it's going to be an interesting next several years for that, because I think it's a testing ground for a lot of what you're talking about.
Let me share my screen, and again, I'm new to this platform. Hopefully, I don't screw it up.
But that's the thing when we talk about TV and the delineation of television from digital or your mobile phone. Television is distributed amongst a variety of players. And then even within the variety of players, there's delineations between, in a Comcast household, there's somebody that still has an old box versus their, Infinity, their new boxes, right? Or they don't have the Zumo box, right? And Comcast has to send a Zumo box or whatever it is. Xfinity, sorry, not Infinity, Xfinity. Again, the reality is TV is a much more complicated medium than your computer or your mobile phone because of the vast network of distribution that happens. There's dozens of cable companies that have different capabilities. There's multiple distributors of signals. You have the reality of the local, affiliates and so on and so forth and their capabilities. So TV is a much more complicated distribution environment for content than I think most people realize. And I will tell you, as when you're on the agency side or when you were on the buyer side, you had some semblance of an understanding of this, but you didn't really have a deep understanding of how complex it really is. And then when you go over to work at a network or whatever, you start to understand how challenging it is to do some of these things at scale and to understand the varying capabilities, because there's a difference between what you could do in Comcast and what you can do in Frontier and so on and so forth. And there's a difference in your data agreements, and there's a difference in your distribution agreements to some extent. There are obviously most favorable nation deals within that, but the without getting into the details of distribution agreements, it's just a much more complex environment than just delivering to a browser on your computer that you open up. And as we talked about offline, TV's an household experience, not an individual experience. You don't know who's in front of the screen in the home, so having personalized experiences is a lot more challenging, which is where the AI and all the predictive modeling will be really, really important.
The let's kind of go right into these new screens, LED screens, and again, being a multidisciplinarian, I'm seeing these everywhere, which is why I believe they're going to be everywhere more, if that makes any sense. So let me share my screen, and hopefully this works. Yay! Now, so what we're going to see here actually is a very popular. Do you see it?
I do now.
Here it comes. Here it comes. Okay.
Yeah, I do now.
So this is very popular right now in the TV and movie production world, right? So these are these very high definition level background LED screens. And it avoids actually the need to do kind of green screen or, all the other things. Mandalorian had used it, in advanced levels, kind of around the board. Star Trek as well, where, it's really not that much kind of, going on. And again, as production wise, you no longer have to have, here's an old version of it, right? Where I got a guy sitting Bond, bouncing around in a, kind of a stationary car. The DTV allows for, this is basically my people, right?
Virtual production sets, AI in tune with production and virtual production sets and so on is where most of these companies are investing from a technology perspective. There are major investments that each network is putting into those specific capabilities. One, because it saves a significant amount of money from a production perspective, massive change.
No background, production, background people, all of
I
that.
mean,
And
the cost savings there are just huge. It's
it's going to
huge.
continue, right? Yeah, it's, I'm saying
Yeah, and it makes a difference because
it,
the cost of the cost of producing new content is so expensive, and this is why most of these companies are struggling meeting, their forecasting goals in terms of revenue or profitability is because the cost of developing content is really really expensive. So once you can both once you have the availability to distribute this kind of capability at scale, but more importantly, like just even forget that. Once you can start to leverage these kind of capabilities in your production, it gives you so many more options to develop new monetization opportunities within those environments, right? So, for example, this is not necessarily coming to pass, but I had the idea that when I was in my previous role that, hey, can we start to, in the production process, have the consideration of having almost open slot environments where you could fill in virtual advertisers, right? And then to be able to deliver those from an addressable perspective, right? So, as an example, you're shooting a scene, hypothetically speaking, you're shooting American Idol, and in front of Simon Cowell is always the Coke thing, right? Well, you shoot that as
yeah,
it being fundamentally naked in a virtual environment, and then you could change that beverage to any number of Coke products depending on who's watching it and who might be more prone to taking the orange soda versus the Coca-Cola soda versus the Sprite and so on and so forth. Or I could put in a different potential advertiser into that environment and so on. That starts at the production side of the equation, right? And so, the ability to start being innovative across the board and using both AI and the virtual capabilities that all these new production environments provide gives you a whole host of different variations that you could do that
yeah.
create and enhance the consumer experience.
No, you kind of like rang a eureka moment. Um, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but when you go to the movies or kind of like a lot of the bigger, entertainment areas, and you have your soda dispensers, you have your choice, right? Of basically in one machine to a whole bunch of brands, right? And then, so and a lot of people don't realize that the companies have been using that for learning, right? So that's why you're coming out with a lot of these great other flavors that most people are kind of hitting right away, because they've been tested live, in the theater to mix a little bit of orange with a little bit of ginger ale and top it off with a Dr
Absolutely.
Pepper, right? And so it's my vision, forecast that as these technologies kind of go on, hopefully there'll be a lot of like kind of like this kind of testing and stuff and see what kind of people
I,
like
I
and
still think a lot of that kind of testing happens in lab environments. I think it's
yeah,
there are you could have people opt in, obviously, but there are real life privacy realities, concerns, laws, etc., etc., etc.,
yeah,
which make the gathering of that quality of data at scale a little bit challenging. And again, we talked about the varying kind of like different consumers have the different capabilities of their TV sets and so on and so forth. So I still think a lot of that happens in lab environments. But having said having said that, you're right. The information gathering to understand behavior patterns, the information gathering, and data processing, and the ability to do that at scale, to do that fast, and to optimize at
mm-hmm,
speeds, formerly unknown,
yeah.
is where we're going and what we're doing, and will have major impact on the experiences.
So um, let me share something with you now. I think it's already on the screen. Now here's a scenario. This is a home-based system, or oh, no, this one isn't home. This one's actually kind of like outside, like a movie theater or kind of something like use of the time. But the technologies as we were describing already exist. They just kind of have to be made a little smaller. So I get a lot of signals, from the Asian, cultures, the Asian,
They
products,
are the
yeah.
what the East tends to be ahead in the technology
Yeah.
front.
It's not really Sino-futurism, but it's like, kind of Asian futurism. So here is a guy who's taking his dad to a ball game. and so they're reusing, again, spaces in different catering halls, hotels. This one actually is kind of a little bit bigger, but look at the associated screens that kind of came around with that. The ability to kind of have food and again, now think about sound. Again, the sound is the same. The feeling's the same. You get all the kind of people in the background, right? Awesome, awesome stuff that is all kind of already already in
Yeah,
play.
that is. I firmly believe that's the future of sports. I
Yeah,
firmly believe, like, yeah, look, you always have people that, like, if you ever been to a Knicks game in MSG, there is no experience like it
I'm
in
not
terms
allowed to
of
go,
the
but that's a different
energy.
story.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of the energy that you
Not
feel,
proven.
right? What?
It wasn't proven why they won't let me back into the Knicks games, but well, that's another show.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to Dolan. Uh, but like again, like the feeling that you get in that stadium in any major sport, like if I go to City Field now and during a Mets game when they're in the playoff run, like the vibe in the stadium is that's a human experience. That's
Yeah,
amazing. But having said all that, and you're going to have your X number of people that are going to go to games, but the real future is I'm just sitting at home and having the same exact experience. I'm
well,
sitting in the front row,
yeah,
at the stadium. I have different angles and views that I could view the game of. So I could be sitting on mid court, or I could be sitting here when they're here, and I could change it, and I could almost behave. When I went to school for television and radio production,
oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
and the role that I thought I was going to do, and the job that I thought I was going to be, was a technical director, right? Like
It's
camera
coming.
2, camera 4, so on and so forth. And I loved that. I still love that. Obviously, it's not what I ended up doing, but it was my passion at the time. And I think the home experience will be that of a technical director. Me being able to go and feel like I'm sitting at the 50-yard line,
Yeah.
I still call it Giant Stadium, so whatever.
Ooh.
I know, you're a Jets guy, but anyway, you're sitting in MetLife, such a dump that stadium, but I'm sitting in the middle of that stadium, and I could shift my view depending on which end zone they're going to be at,
Yeah.
at home, and I could have that experience where I feel like I'm literally on top and having views that you could never have before. Like that is absolutely the future of television
Yeah.
consumption and sports. And sports is going to be the driver of that.
No, absolutely.
That and porno more than likely.
Woohoo! Sports porno is next. But no, sports is 100% right. Again, that feeds into my, future thinking and again, the forecast that I had, again, when you look back and you saw, like, again, how sports has kind of affected certain TV directions. Again, that's in part one. Again, but I'm gonna stay here, but because I feel this completely destroys like I say, not destroys, uh, um, evolves the VR world. I'm very surprised actually for some time now than how dependent it's been to the goggle. And I've never been kind of pro goggle, knowing I think maybe because I knew this was going to be kind of coming right around the corner or something. And
You're not going to need the glasses, of course.
there's so much energy, development time, and all of that kind of and it's just they're gonna kind of leave, gonna be left at the corner.
Yeah, I
And
mean, look, we're probably going to have to be at 6G for a lot of that to be, whatever the next version of G is. But that experience, that Iron Man Marvel experience, if you will, is a good predictor of what things are going to look like.
right, and definitely influencers, right, force multipliers to certain technologies, and of course, I must always bring Star Trek back. There has been so
Totally.
much of that
Totally.
type of technologies that that we all take for
It's always
granted.
been
That
that way. You remember the Jetsons? You're old enough to remember the Jetsons.
much.
How much of
I
that has
had
come
that.
true?
Well, we're still missing the flying car. But that's going to be
We're
still a
not,
while.
though. There
But
is a flying vehicle.
oh no, there definitely is one. But it's not like we're taking it
Yeah, but
to
listen, it
work.
hasn't gotten there yet. But is there any doubt that it will?
Oh no, no, no. Again, it's definitely going to be like basically a very big drone. So again, just learn your drone
I mean,
technologies because that's going to be
video
your.
screens, the way that the dehydrated food for astronauts, like just like so much, it's like it's hilarious that it's the case, but
No, no,
so
no. And
much of
know
what
what it was? There was something I'm not sure where I posted it, or if I wrote about it, or kind of something like that. It had to do with the recent usage of the slow treadmill that a lot of influencers are kind of using to kind of like they're walking around or or whatever, and then they're starting to put their pets on it.
yeah, yeah.
So now they're walking around with their pets on a slow treadmill, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this here before. Where is this from? You
Wasn't
know?
Astro doing that? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's
No,
what I'm saying. That's right out of the Jetsons, man. It was like,
no, I'm,
like,
I'm telling you, like, does
well,
does
that's the
light
whole.
imitate art, or does the art imitate life? And I don't know the answer to
Yeah,
that, but
it
it's
is.
it's real.
It is a very, and again, and a method in futures thinking. Like the looking back to look forward, or retrofuturism. Retrofuturism also very powerful, untapped, and you know, and fun to watch. But you get to see like, oh wow, they were thinking about this way back when, and this, and and so I always use that in my kind of overall, kind of review. I'm trying to share my screen. I'm sorry. Um, I must be on taxing my computation, but I want to show you or how we want to kind of end this, and is with the 12D cinema that we're kind of seeing already. Let me try sharing it again. And it'll be very similar to the experience that we just saw at the bowl game. Kind of down the corner. And then the other excitement I wanted to mention, and you tapped into it, is like, and I don't know if anyone has the misfortune of never going to a live hockey game, right? That's the best thing. You can watch it at home all you want,
It is
or kind of
probably the
something like
best
that.
live sport. I will agree.
It is
And I'm not.
the
I'm not even a hockey fan, but it is the best live sport. It's the best live sport because it's a horrible television sport.
well, okay, there it is. Maybe that's where my connection is, because I was saying if we took that scenario that we just saw, before with watching your game, with your dad, that's pretty close. You can like when you get the fans, you get the there, you get the sound,
Absolutely.
like a surround sound of the horn, whatever. You're there. You're gonna be there. I think it's a lot
No, no.
again.
I will tell you that what you described, that experience.
Yeah,
Uh, if I'm the NHL, like I'm I'm investing in that innovation myself, and I'm putting my league money into that because I think
I hope so. I hope so. And
it's what I think would make hockey a much more enjoyable television. Because like again, I'm not a big hockey guy. If the Rangers great,
hey,
I'm from New York, so
aren't
what are you
you?
Islanders? You're from Long Island. I get it.
No, 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 Rangers, man. What are you talking about?
Rangers. Okay,
Yeah.
so but I'm not. Look, I'm not really a
No,
hockey
I
fan,
know.
but
I
I've
don't
been
care.
to a dozen Ranger games, and it's the best live sport there is
Yeah,
because of the experience. Assuming you have good seats.
yeah.
So now to translate that to home would be. I mean, again, if I'm Gary Bettman, I think he's still the league commissioner. I would be putting my money into that.
So, so here it is. I finally got it going. So this is how some people are going to see. Some people are already watching movies. This is the.
Immersive.
Oh no! Look, there's a dragon in the background. Look out! Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I get all
Oh, no,
excited.
no. I mean, I
So
fully agree. Fully agree. Immersive experiences.
yeah, yeah. So that the technology exists. Again, they have to be. We will have to address some of the privacies and kind of other issues. And we'll address kind of some of them here. Like I think one of the last things I want to share, hopefully, as we start to wind down, is the chart that I pulled. And there's a side story. I know I pulled this, 5 minutes before our, for the progress, the podcast. The unbelievable amount of energy and information that you can get from AI, who pulled this in the amount of time it took me to type it, which I got global growth numbers of household TV, internet users, and PlayStation users. Remember in the old days that I don't even know where we were able to get stuff like this. It took forever. and I got this in a
Yeah, I
half a
mean, look,
second.
we don't know how accurate it is because I don't know where the data's
Oh
pulled
no no
from.
no! Oh, all of a sudden, no. I thoroughly went through this. When it comes to households by millions, on the Y and the I had to rerun this a few times. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty close, right? And again, this is the only other point that I want to make toward linear television having the ability, you know, to kind of tap into the internet and kind of all that. And we've used these numbers before, and kind of like look how long it took TV, the purple line here, to get to where to get to it looks like again 100 and what is that? So you add that to a million. So 115. What is that? 15 million? No.
It's super small on the share, so I have a hard time kind
Okay.
of reading the
So
chart a little bit.
it's in millions on the left side. So again, okay. Well, anyway,
You're looking
it,
about 160, I think. Is
yeah. No. What is 15,000 millions? Because I double
that is
checked with the
that
technology
is
with
in
the
the, well, I mean,
well, whatever the 15,000 millions, which I feel really stupid about right now. It took TV from
1.5. It should be 1.5, no?
I asked that question, and I guess I could change the scale. And it was cool because it said this was really important for critical thinking when you're working with charts, and you might want
150
to bring
million.
that up in your podcast more
150
segment.
million.
150 million, users from TV. It took them, 50, almost 60 years, right? And the internet, which started in 1995, did it in less than 20, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, obviously we're in a different world and a different.
well, right. I'm not doing like an exact. This is like households globally.
But there's no question the speed that we operate in as a society today, to your point, just access technology, global reach and scale is,
Scale. That's
we're
what I
just
wanted to
at the
talk about.
beginning stages of this kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, anything you put out now can scale into like just untold numbers so quickly now, right? That, the viral, if you will, ability for things to kind of, for technology and things to kind of scale is unmatched in
Right.
history.
And this is why I think linear television has like an amazing opportunity to kind of move their little, chart from in 2020 to that chasm that the internet has because you're using the same technologies. You're using the same kind of anything. It's immediate scale.
Well,
And
it'll
again,
it'll be interesting when we talk linear, right? Like the natural decline of subs at cable and so on. You will hit a floor at some point for a period of time, but linear doesn't have a 20-year shelf life, right? Like it's got probably a decade or so. I mean,
but that
how many people, like you'll always have people, like there are still X number of people who have AOL, right? Like,
right. But
so you'll have an audience for linear, but it's going to be the massive minority, and nobody's going to build towards that.
and I do want to get back to that, but I also want to kind of mention with the chart, where the gold level here is the global player PlayStation console users, heading like and again on the lower end of this, even I always thought it would be a lot higher, but and the only reason I bring it up is because I feel that when you're adding these technologies, when you're adding that kind of scale, when you're adding that kind of like customization and control, you basically just have linear television becoming a video game. Either tapping into with biometrics, and haptics to know what you like or don't like, or hand gestures to say this is kind of cool, or you don't like where the show is going, or kind of anything like that. So they all seem to be kind of converging in that area. But I was very surprised on the just on the platform on a global level. Like for some reason, I thought it'd be
Yeah,
kind of
I think
high.
all of that is right, right? Like the 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 functionality and opportunities for innovation exist. Again, I hedge with the term linear, simply because it connotates like a specific delivery mechanism, right? And it has like it has a connotation, if you will, of cable delivery, and so on. And I think everything's going to be satellite delivered and et cetera. But I think your point is salient, which is your experience with television, right? Regardless of the delivery mechanism, your experience with television will be digitized, whether it's through traditional means that will probably be in larger scale in the center of the country where people maybe have less access to certain broadband opportunities, or they're just slower to adapt certain technologies, or there's just a comfort level with certain experiences, versus what might happen on the coast, as an example, or whatever. But I think your point is salient in that your experience will digitize, and with the digitization of your experience, will create new opportunities to capture data,
Yeah.
to capture behavior, which will then create the cycle of more better experiences and personalizations and so on and so forth.
The there was an AR tool or product that's being developed right now. You're seeing it in a lot of trade shows, but you're also starting to see it in a better let's just say at home environments, or some of these kind of group environments. And it better work now. I'm gonna be really pissed. Why won't this show me the screen? I'll either edit it in, kind of as we go on. But
Yeah.
it's basically the concave screen for the entire room, where you're kind of basically walking right into it, sitting down into it, and it has the perspective changes and kind of things like that. And it's not science fiction. They're literally, again, selling it now, very expensive, but so was everything at one point.
Yeah, I mean, like I would tell anybody, um, where I got a lot of my ability to kind of recognize some of the future, or where you kind of see developments. If you go to CES and you specifically focus on certain areas, the TV environment as an example, that is one of the best places you're going to see like future innovations, right? So there was a period of time, forget what it
Yeah.
was, maybe like 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. I was at a CES, and there was a TV that I dubbed the marriage saver, right? And the concept of the TV is
Marriage saver.
yeah, I'm watching one input, or my wife's watching one input, and with a set of glasses on the same screen, you're
That's
watching a
awesome.
different input, right? So
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah,
watching two
yeah.
different pieces of content on the same screen at the same time, sitting next to each other, but you're next to each other. So there's that, not like you have to separate to watch things. And I thought, hey, that's like a really bright idea, and I think that has legs. And what happened is that you don't need to do that, because the second screen became like much more viable, and people are just simply watching on an
Hmm.
iPad, and so that doesn't make sense to scale. And your ability to have multiple inputs into your TV and have them going at the same time requires different different hardware, which is like not necessarily built to scale. But the idea and the concept of being able to have multiple experiences in one environment, that's part of everything we're talking about.
Yeah,
Immersive
that's fantastic.
experiences, multiple experiences. That what I described speaks to a personalized experience for TV as opposed to a household. I will know that my wife, the somebody will know that somebody's watching, Real Housewives, and somebody's watching the Met game, and you can make some really easy assumptions as to who's doing that. You're not going to be right 100% of the time, but you'll probably be right about 95.
Yeah.
And so you could start to create like real experiences off of that in personalized, right? And so like all
So
these. Go ahead.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry to cut you off. I just wanted. Do you see the screen? Did it
Yeah.
eventually come up?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So this is an actual product right now. Right.
Yep.
Again, I'll leave the link in the in the video, and also on my website. But it's an LED
Immersive.
scene for sing, for gaming and flight simulations. It's kind of using them right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't take much to bend, and you actually inspired me, like with an imagination thing when it came to the story you said with your wife. Again, I wanted to just show that this exists. These are going to be around. I don't. Will this be the end product? That's will make it
No,
into
I mean,
your house or
I
your
think
room. But
it's likely the facilitator to what we're talking about, though, right? Like that, put on a set of glasses and have that immersive experience. It's probably the precursor
no
to that
glasses. No more
because
glasses.
what? Well, maybe
No
you'll
more
need glasses,
glasses.
maybe you
No
won't,
more
but
glasses.
yeah.
Yeah. Not
Well, I
here.
think
I find it.
initially you might need a
My
piece of hardware to facilitate it, but whatever the case, you're right. That is probably like
yeah.
what the experience is going to be. Having that
No
set
more
in your house,
goggles. No more glasses.
right? But having that set in your house, like
Yeah.
it's not conducive to most people's living environments, which is probably why that doesn't necessarily
Ooh,
scale.
another great point I never thought of.
But what the experience is does scale, right? The experience
Yeah.
scales, the hardware doesn't.
Yeah. And so all around corner, and again, one last, I was going to bring it up, but it kind of fits in here now, again, because you inspired me with the story about you and your wife. Disney, I watch patents, right, for signals. Kind of guy, it's kind of futurist I am, right? You can't
Yeah,
do it all day, but you kind of, poke in.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and specifically Disney. And Disney is sitting on this technology that they're apparently going to be kind of bringing out. One, and I'm dying to find out how they're doing it. And they're going to bring it to the amusement park first, but they quickly want to move this to an at-home experience. So apparently, there's going to be a handheld. And again, I don't know what the hell this handheld is going to be doing. The closest thing I can kind of come out to is that maybe it's going to be doing like an inert gas or something like that. Then will allow other projections and things to kind of go on. But the important part of it is that and we already see these technologies a lot with again, a lot of these, immersive games and stuff like that, where you're taking two people's perspectives, right? So when you walk into the room, the person's already in the room, you know, the background doesn't kind of, is kind of changing depending on where you're going and where your other friend is going and kind of things like that. So like in super real time, super fast speeds and, and all of that. So wouldn't it be cool if you and your wife are watching two different shows, but it eventually melds into like like the show that you guys can kind of like watch together. Like you're watching like a spy movie and she's watching, I don't know. I guess I hate to be like love story. It sounds like very gender like, but and then like eventually the second half of the show or the movie is this like the same one. Like AI has kind of figured out a way that talk about the marriage saver, right? Like that'd be
Maybe. I mean, look, I think it's certainly feasible. I don't know. Like,
yeah, that's kind of
big things are
cool.
going to go in weird directions, but I do think, I do think AI is going to give an opportunity to, within regulations for rights and
Hmm.
within regulations for with respect to writers and actors and
Yeah.
directors and so on, AI will give new content experiences where, I think you mentioned at some point like a choose your adventure kind of thing,
Right.
which,
A
right,
lot
like
of
it's
the
been done on
first
Netflix. It
during
was like a
COVID.
nice buzz, but it's not like necessarily a behavior that people have. But like for you to be able to kind of start to, like you said, kind of have stories be something that make a little bit more sense for you as a person.
Hmm.
And as long as you're using the same actors, the actors are paid. As long as you're using the same writers, and the writers are paid, and directors, and all the realities of the
I'm telling you, an
financial.
opportunity. It
Yeah,
really
but
is.
it
It's
creates
really not that
opportunity.
locked down.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
it creates opportunity for a real Black Mirror kind of shit.
yeah,
So yeah.
the which kind of led me into again the challenges and considerations that we should be having with these technologies.
Listen,
You hit it
there
right on
are
it. Yeah, about the again the writers and the actors. The content development. And again, I'm 100%
humans are
behind
still
them. I don't
involved.
want them to but it gives them
People
a
have
lot
to
of
get
great
paid.
opportunity.
Yeah, and look, and that's going to be the biggest. That is the biggest hurdle to all of this. People are the biggest hurdle to all of this. Money
People.
is the biggest hurdle to all of this. People still have to get paid. So, like, the breakdown of traditional television, everybody predicts, but the reality is that there's a lot of money being paid to local affiliates and so on and so forth. And there's too much money that is impacted for things to be as smooth as change it tomorrow because it's there from a technology perspective.
Yeah.
So, that's our biggest hurdle to change. But one way or the other, it will happen. It's just speed is the determining factor, right?
Yeah. When we talk about the privacy things, things like that, everyone's like, we can only do like so much to prepare for it, but we will eventually just bang our heads into something, fix it, change it, and then keep going until we bang our heads.
I mean,
So what?
it comes down to,
Yeah.
are you having a better experience as a consumer and is somebody making money on it?
Woohoo, So one of the personalized content issues that I think that might come up, and it has already come up, is with your voice assistants, right?
Yeah.
So there was a time that Amazon Alexa somehow picked up that a person in the house was pregnant, either by their requests or kind of different things
Whatever
like
the
that.
case is, yeah, there was enough data
And
to make that
yeah,
assumption.
yeah, and just as a side note, biometrics, which I am an expert on, your digital assistant can tell certain things about you health wise just by your voice. That I talk about that in other writings. That'd be great, a great series there too. So like a father found out that his daughter was pregnant that way. So imagine being like in a personalized content show, and they're like all these like baby stuff starts coming up, and they're like, hey.
Yeah, no, I
What's
mean,
all
look,
this baby
that
content,
it
Hey.
sounds terrific, and it's kind
Yeah,
of like you work in advertising, and you're like, yes, this is how it's supposed to be. But then you turn into a consumer, and you go, well, fuck you. Why the fuck should you have all this information? This is
right.
bullshit. Get out of my life. So
Yeah,
it's a fine line, right, between I work in advertising, I love advertising, and when you bring up stuff like that, you think of all the potential opportunities and the good that comes out of that. But the
yeah,
reality is, as a consumer, I'd be really fucking pissed.
yeah. The those things I know we definitely have like how many people in the room, this and that. I think again as advertisers, as people who've dealt with these kind of privacy issues before, we worked a lot of this out already. But it's just going to get more detailed because we're going to be so more finite. When we get there. So the bandwidth and infrastructure is still an issue. I know I've been mentioning that these technologies do exist and they do, but delivery to 10 million to delivery to a billion is very different, right? So we don't have billion level infrastructure, but again, we didn't have it the last time, right? So we get there. Content creation for interactive immersive experience. We talked about that. Praising the writers, praising the again content developers. Giving having them be a very big part of this. I couldn't see doing this without them.
No, you can't.
So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
5 to 10 years, and again, okay. Where do you see linear TV? Wait, what year is it?
Linear.
2030, 6 years.
I
Yeah,
see linear TV being at
and
maybe
again, I'm using linear TV as a definition when it comes to because they own the rights to all the sports and all the news,
well,
right? They
again,
are no. I don't think your TV is going to be a box, right?
no,
That's
no.
but linear TV, in its like Gestalt aspect of it, what it is going to be in the next six
Okay.
years.
Okay, because like when you say linear TV, I think about it a little differently. I think about like something delivered over like a traditional cable, wire versus
Well, you
something
don't
that's
have to because it's digital now. I get
understood. But even the
right.
IP delivery, is whatever the case. So I think that, television, holistically, right? Forget about the term linear because I think it provides a specific connotation. I think television holistically will be in a place where there's significantly more interactive behavior. You could see it now with shoppable and all this other stuff. Uh, I think that you mentioned haptics and stuff like that and gestures. I think that will be you'll be in that will be part of an equation, but there's some complexity around some of that. So like for haptics to work, you need to have a camera. You want to have a camera on you at all times in your house. That's in question. So there's some challenges there.
They
But
hear you all day.
Yeah, but I mean,
Right.
there's a difference between. I mean, people are uncomfortable with that, but
There's a trust factor. I completely understand, and
there's a
something that
concern
really
around
needs to
that.
be
That
educated,
yeah,
around both the end user
yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
decision makers. Right.
I do think that the experience will have a lot more VR as part of it. I think a lot of what we talked about will become a little bit more reality because I think the spatial
Yeah.
computing kind of layer really kicks in different experiences. I can picture an environment, right? And Apple shows this when you look at their glasses. Without the glasses of me watching a game and having two separate screens available to me without me having to have physical screens for my fantasy league and my
So cool.
gambling. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. I mean, I think that like that's why I think sports and I joke about porn, but porn is the absolute
Oh
innovator
no,
of fucking
absolutely.
internet,
Yeah.
right? Like the innovator of the internet. I
Completely.
think that
Video,
absolutely, like
e-commerce, all of
it's
them.
an innovator. It's the
Yeah.
innovator, frankly. But like I think that like you're less about a lot of personalization because I think privacy and things are going to be complex depending on who comes into office and how do we have federal regulations, state regulations, and so on. But I think that the having TV experience and you having much more engagement with your TV so that your TV isn't as lean back as it used to be, right? Because that's what you always would say. TV's a lean back experience. People want it to
Right.
be a lean back experience. And I think the nature of who's watching TV in terms of your kids, and like the 12-year-old now who's going to be 17-year-old now, later, and what they're going to be expecting from their TV experience and so on. I think it will be much more of an engaged, immersive experience where you are actively engaged with, if not the content and the advertising, with the just the consumption experience. I think things will be voice driven, and so on, and that's where I see things going. Whether or not that's 5 years, 3 years, or 7 years will depend on a lot of different things, and the cost of some of this stuff. But I see TV being much more of a lean in medium than it ever was considered years from now.
Right. I just kind of put up real quick because I'm, again, looking for signals about, because I do want to take this to a next level when it comes to
That's messed up, dude.
TV and gambling, right? Because it's so like you really kind of led that up, and I think your experience and your kind of foresight has has seen that the ability for TV to have such digital information to be able to connect to so many different sources. Gambling is a
Yeah.
no
It's
doubter.
not the healthiest experience, but it is likely the
Yeah.
one. I mean, I can't watch TV without a ton of gambling ads now because I watch sports content all day. So it's all gambling content. So yeah, I think that there will be. I think people will. I had a guy who I was talking to. I'll plug him. Who was working on a company called WeBet, where he was like, you can gamble on anything you want. I can gamble on a primary for politics. I can gamble on anything and do it with my
Hmm.
friends and some and I think it's a really brilliant idea. And I think that the immersive opportunity to bring in like, hey, we're all watching a program, like that's the other thing, like the social, bringing in the social aspect of it, right?
Yeah, wouldn't that be
So
great? Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's again
To bring another layer of that we're all so
it'll be
disconnected.
fascinating, but can we all be watching, an episode of whatever program, and then we bet on what's going to happen in the next scene, right? Stuff like
Yeah,
that, and
that's
then
cool.
you do it through tokens, virtualized tokens, and
Right.
right. So like yeah, no, I a
What
thousand
you
percent that
are
that's
you believer?
yeah, no, it's definitely where it can go, where it
Yeah.
likely will go. I don't love the construct of social TV because I don't care to watch a show with like 20 other people, but my kid might, and other kids might. So like, what
No, but
matters to me,
yeah.
at 48, 50 years old is going to be super irrelevant to what matters to a 20-year-old and their group of friends. But, social TV and then interactive with that in a social experience, or that group's ability to shift the narrative of the program with AI, yeah, that's all going to be there.
I'm kind of loving that stuff. One day, maybe the virtual twin of Rich and Julian will watch some kind of virtual AI movie together, man.
Yeah, yeah, our
Wouldn't that be
clones.
nice?
Yeah,
The
for sure.
All right, so Julian, it's been amazing. Any final thoughts you want to,
No,
you
I
know?
think to me,
Well,
television is an intimate part of the human experience. For many of us, not for all of us, but for many of
yeah,
us, television is an intimate a part of the human experience, and by proxy will be a huge driver of human behavior, will be a huge driver of technology acceptance and consumption, and is really, really important to the fabric of society. And I think this topic and related, offshoots of this topic based on any number of kind of technologies that spin off of this
keep talking.
is a
Keep
huge
talking.
driver of the future. And people like
Yeah.
you will be an incredible resource to how people
Thank you.
adapt to the
Oh,
world.
thank you very much. Yeah. Write your congressman. Show them this. Show them this is coming down the line, and you want it. Yeah.
I'll write my
And then
congressman.
the last thing is, if I was just graduating college and I, had the fortunate chance to have a cup of coffee with you, what would you kind of? And again, I know depending on again, what direction I want to go. Let's just say someone who's in the media, entertainment, TV, business, or maybe psychology, right? Because they're so much they're so similar. A lot of people don't realize, but
Yeah, I mean, my advice is
what
always
would
the
you tell them
same.
to do?
My advice is always the same on that front. Be yourself. Don't be afraid to be honest, because that's what's lacking in general. Um, don't get stuck on what you know, and be comfortable with admitting what you don't know so that you could learn. The best executives that I ever had a chance to work with in my career were always people who were comfortable saying, I know what I don't know.
Yeah,
And that to me really resonates, because if you are the kind of individual who is unwilling to admit what they don't know, then you are a barrier to innovation, because you're always going to stick and be comfortable, force things to be what you do know.
fast and horses.
And so, like, at the end of the day, be honest, be yourself, be confident, because confident is an aura that people gravitate towards. Um, be comfortable with what you don't know, be willing to learn, um, and then don't hesitate to ask questions. Those
Awesome.
are the things that I would say.
And I'm sure you're available to everyone. They could just reach out to you at any time on
To the degree
LinkedIn.
that anybody ever wants to reach out, my door is always open.
Great, great. I'll put your LinkedIn information again in the
Sure.
platform here.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you so much for sharing your information, your experience, and your time. And if you liked it, maybe we'll do it again someday.
Absolutely. My pleasure, brother.
All right.
Cheers.